Let's bring in Mark Cohon now, the chair of the Junos, the man that's in the vodka spirits business, and he joins us. Hey, he's all dressed up for us today. How you doing, Mark?
Yeah, I did. I put a shirt on. I slicked my hair back for you. Try and look good.
I appreciate it. Listen, I gotta ask you. The last time we talked, it was right at the start of the pandemic. I think just before you guys announced the Junos would not be held at SaskTel Center in Saskatoon. How devastating it was for you guys and for us. Have plans been made for post-pandemic at all, or can you make any plans for the Junos?
No, we did a virtual Junos at the end of June where we announced all those winners, but we're right now going through the process of trying to think through the next one. And one of the scenarios continues to be no show, nothing in person. We really are talking about potentially doing an all TV show and digital show. So it's tough, we have to. This is going to take a long time for entertainment to come back. It's going to take a long time for sports, as you're seeing. So I think we have to think, through 21 and think of a variety of different scenarios. One, can we group together, or can we just have to do it virtually?
Well, and the interesting thing is for football fans, they think you've got your feet up just sunning yourself in retirement. And the fact of the matter is you're elbows deep in these discussions, but you can feel the pain of the sports operators and because you've lived both sides of it, right? So you're seeing the same thing they are.
Absolutely. I mean, I see it. The poor people of Saskatchewan. First we canceled the Junos, and then the Grey Cup gets canceled. So it's a tough year for Saskatoon and Regina as well. But I see it in a lot of other businesses I'm involved with. My wife has her own PR company. She had to lay off half of her staff. Fortunately, our spirits business is doing well. Unfortunately, people are drinking a lot, but it's good for our business. And it all depends what business you're in now. So I just think you just have to be sensitive and know that there's a lot of people struggling out there. And the story of the CFL is part of what's going on with this pandemic.
Well, I'm sure, you're somewhat active on Twitter. You're on Twitter. I think you pick and choose who you respond to, right? Which we all do. But from that Canadian Football League, you're getting it all the time. You're my favorite commissioner of all time. People are writing in that here right now. You obviously know Randy Ambrosie. You know he's a good guy. What are your thoughts on what they've had to deal with here?
It's been tough. I've been talking to a few of the other commissioners. I stay in touch with Adam Silver and Don Garber at Major League Soccer. Everyone is learning on the fly. There's no one wrote a book for this black swan moment as it relates to a pandemic. So I think that's challenging. And Randy, I listened to an interview he did the other day, I believe with TSN, where he said he wished he had done a few things differently, especially the ask of the government of $150 million. I think that became the story and that got away from him. And, if he looks back and what he said was he wished he spent a little more time sitting down with the players. And I can understand the stress that he was under, but hopefully that experience will allow the team to, not just the team, the entire league, to sit back and say, what does the future of the CFL look like? And for me, I think they should really undress the onion, peel back the onion, and really look at what's good, what's bad, and what's the future can hold, and how do we build a more sustainable model.
That's a great comment, and I hope that they do. They're talking about it, but a lot of times they say a lot of things that we never see happen. But the one thing with Randy in that ask, I just wonder when people are going to stop beating him up about it. Like at what point? He's admitted he'd change it. People don't want to let him off the hook. And my guess, do you have people in the media that follow your Juno career like you did in the football? Like they just don't want to let people off the hook. And at some point, Randy, I believe, needs to be let off the hook for that.
Yeah, I agree. I remember there was times when we were going through our first labor negotiations, and the one time where I got, stuck with the media going after me was those first labor negotiations, and eventually they let me off the hook. And I think you need to. I think Randy admitted that he would have done things a little bit differently. So now is the time to rebuild. But I think they can be very creative. If you're talking about relationship, why don't they sit down? A whole future area is going to be sports betting. I think the leagues, and you look at progressive leagues like the NBA and Adam Silver, if there's new models they should start to think about, one is sports betting, and can the leagues start taking advantage of some of those things? So I think you have to throw up a whole bunch of things on the wall and see what the opportunities lay ahead. But I will tell you, in terms of planning for next year, I think they have to plan for if the season comes back, or whether we're trying to do a COVID season where there's no fans in place, and how do they do that, and how they still work with the players so the players get some salaries during these tough times.
Mark, good to see you again. John Lynch here. I'm one of those guys who thinks you're the best commissioner we ever had, and I've seen them all. I think, Mark, do you think at all cost? There's a lot of guys have told me at all cost, and I'm one of them. I think we should have put some kind of season together with only a 6-game season, 8-game season, 7-game season. But the final choice was no. We're going to close things down for this year and get really prepared for 21. Your thoughts on that?
See, when this came out, and I didn't want to be very public about it, I was very pessimistic that a season could happen, primarily because of the revenue structure of the league, that it's a ticket-driven league. I was very much in the mindset that the league should have potentially used this as an opportunity to retrench, to say, God, it's tough out there. People are suffering. It's going to be really hard for us to come back. Let's scale down our operations. Let's conserve cash. Let's use this as an opportunity with some of the players. Let's still do things in the community, but probably the likelihood of having a season was not going to be in place. So I was probably, John, on the other side of it, where I would have said, let's just not try and do 4 games or 5 games or 6 games. Let's do what is probably more practical for the business, is say, stop, replenish, rethink, scale back a bit, try and reserve some of your cash for the future, and rethink about the future. Although it's sad. I mean,
oh yeah. Well, from a viewer, Aaron says, Roddy, can you ask Mark how hard it was being commish when the board has different motives? You want what's best, but sometimes the board just doesn't get it. You're a smart guy, Mark. I'll let you handle that however you want. I say that you pulled the Seinfeld thing. You left them wanting more. We were all like, "Where are you going, Mark? We need you." And it was a frustrating time. Handle that however you want. I don't know. What's it like dealing with these guys?
Yesterday we did a little bit of renovation on our cottage, and we had these young guys working on our cottage, and I did a barbecue for them to say thank you for working during COVID and really appreciated it last night. And they were asking me, they're all like 25, 30, Mark, you're a nice guy. What was it like being commissioner? And I remember one of the final interviews that I did in the Globe and Mail, I was wrapping my Tom Hobson said, Mark had an iron fist with a velvet glove. And that was a real interesting assessment of me, that I really learned from David Stern and a few other people that you had to have your convictions, you had to be tough, but you had to know how to treat people with respect and with class. And a lot of the times the owners wanted a commissioner that could lead, and that's what I tried to do. So I was fortunate. Not everyone agrees with you all the time, but you have to sort of push through and get the majority on your side.
I remember that quote. And would the phrase "pick your battles" be appropriate too for your time and for any guy that's in the commissioner's role?
Absolutely. You got to say what's the most important things. You might fall on your sword on some things, and you really got to, but you really just have to have a conviction, a passion about where you're going. Make sure the owners are aligned with that, but not just the owners, it really is the players as well, and bring them on the journey. What I was able to do, I think Randy's able to do, is spend a lot of time with the fans. Mission critical move is making sure that trust, being a former player, is there, that part of this rebuild.
We're having some small connection issues. I'm just going to ask you one more, Mark, and I'll let you go. Sorry. But from our viewer, Nelson, it's not Sorry. You. Nelson says, what would you point to as your legacy as commissioner of the Canadian Football League? Is there one thing that you're most proud of?
God, that's a tough one, because there were so many great things that our team did. This was not just me, but you see it in Saskatchewan. I think the building of the new stadiums during my time was a huge part of our success, and laid the foundation for the the future. And probably from a personal experience, and that was a lot of, I would say, getting Ottawa back and seeing the success that franchise has had, for me, was one of the things that when I reflect, I'm very proud of.
Well, and a viewer from Saskatoon, Arlene, and you'd know her if you saw her. She says, one legacy piece I thank Mark for, bringing the fan State of the League address at Grey Cup, still one of my favorite events at the festival. It's almost unfair to ask you for one thing now that I think about it, because you led the fan parade. You did a lot of things. You brought the fans in and made them feel important. So, Mark, we will let you go, but just say we think of you often out here. Continued success with what you do, and keep in touch, please.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.